So I have no notes ready or anything. I just kind of wanted to talk about the subject at hand. I'm going to start this off talking about Mexico. When I was there, I was on a bus and I had just visited the bookstore, and thankfully they had books in English. I mean, I could have read in Spanish, but I was looking for English books because sometimes when you're in a foreign country, you just want to hear your mother tongue. And anyway, I came across a poetry book about Native American poetry, and in the preface of the introduction, they were talking about Native American spirituality and how they allowed a lot of what they said and a lot of their prayers, a lot of their poems had openness. And by openness, they said that there was really this spirit of movement that moved through the poem, so that it captured kind of the silent mystery of nature. And they said that this was very different from empirical knowledge, and I thought that was fascinating. And I was just going over some old notebooks, some of the things that I've written in the past, and I wrote down addiction to description. And what that means to me. What does it mean? When we're in school, and I always try to go as far back as we can, start as early as possible and say, what were we taught to get us to where we are? And I think about the classroom. I know that I can start in the home. I'm sure that Freud would probably say start in the home, but I'm going to say start in the classroom, which is where we're formally taught. And I'm just thinking of a teacher, being, I'm sorry, distraction from my cat, a teacher sitting on her chair and holding up an item and saying, "What's this?" And the kid who is rewarded is the kid that knows the name of the object. Now maybe it's fair and arguably reasonable to say, well, we need to know the names of objects or there is no form of communication, right? I think why I want to talk about this is because I feel deep feelings of frustration when there are things that I obtain from my intuition that I cannot communicate in words. And I do feel there are certain emotions that are so intense or so complicated that no word can perfectly match them. I mean, maybe language is a completely different entity. I mean, we know that a whole major can be composed of linguistics, but I think about just different languages that I've learned over time. I think about how Spanish is a very earthy language, and it's a very humble, natural language, dirt, polvo, and I mean, I could really save that for another video. I think about French as being a very articulate and exacting language. I think that the American language previously did follow a lot of French rules, but over time became loosened. The English actually still use shall, and we typically still use will. Okay, totally different conversation. But definition, with all of the languages and all of the words that I know, and all of the research into words and definitions and meanings, I still feel like there's something that I just can't absolutely communicate to another person. the emotional world is so expansive, and I think that the spiritual world, or what one would deem spiritual, because it's mysterious and awesome, do you have humility about that? I mean, you as a person, how do you deal with things that you can't describe? You know, I'm very frustrated by it, and I hope dearly that it's not an arrogance, because I know that there are some people who feel a sense of ownership about things in nature that they can define, that they can express, and it's not attractive in the least when they're very boastful and haughty about something that is very beautiful. I feel that there very possibly could be a lack of appreciation for things that they feel are just so accessible to definition. Oh, that's just da 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 da. You know, is the sun any less attractive because you understand at how many degrees Fahrenheit it's burning? I mean, these are really huge questions, right? We're talking about the difference between thought and experience. I didn't want to have any notes because I'm really typically talking about the subject. I'm talking about the subject at hand. I hope that I'm not being too ambiguous, but essentially what I'm saying is, in layman's terms, which are quite difficult for me at times, there aren't enough words. There aren't enough words for everything I think and feel and see and hear. And sometimes I feel like just lightning just rushes through my whole body at a certain experience, and I want to tell that to people, and I want to convey that to other people, and it's just like I just feel they're not getting it. And oftentimes I will refuse to even communicate if there's any doubt of your comprehension, you know. I think that deep things are best saved for those who can understand them. And I don't mean deep things like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you because you're not smart. I mean deep emotional things, you know. A child, I would more readily talk to a child about something emotional than sometimes adults who aren't inclined to understanding. Anyway, if you know what I'm talking about in this video of ambiguity, then let me know. Else, everything I'm saying, I'll just have to leave to mystery and to awe and to everything that is beyond the grasp of language. Before I go, I do want to say one language I feel that comes closest, spiritually speaking, to everything that I feel is sign language. And you know, I feel that the two sign languages that I learned were very close to this spiritual, emotional context that I'm speaking of. So I just wanted to say that.